Are we headed towards psychohistory? So if any of you guys have read the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov, essentially the main premise of the series is that they developed this science called psychohistory, which you could think of it as like data science and sociology and statistics and economics all rolled into one, where you're able to predict all human actions at aggregate or macro scale and predict them into the future. And so things happen and the empire falls, but this guy named Harry Seldon predicted a way to create a second empire in the fewest amount of years possible. And so that's the essential premise of this series, because he thought that if left to its own devices, there'd be more death and suffering than need be. So with all of this new, AI data scraping in the world, it makes me wonder if we're heading towards a sort of psychohistory, but not in the sense of how it was created in the Foundation series, but in this new, almost decentralized sense where it's used by these AI agents and companies. For example, think of like Palantir. They take all this data and they have all these algorithms and all this stuff, and they can just predict at the macro scale, once you get enough data, what humans will do at large. And the question arises, what does the future look like then? And so I think that we need to develop an idea that isn't new, but is gaining some prominence with people like Nick Land in his, he calls it teleoplexy, but in reality it's just teleological retrocausality. And what that is that telos, or the final cause in Aristotle's Four Causes, which you can think of as like the essential goal or final purpose that an object holds, can exist at some point in the future. It doesn't necessarily need to exist at some point in the present, but say the purpose of humanity. Have we reached that purpose? Maybe not, but that maybe exists in the future. And if that exists in the future, it can retro-cause the past, because for it to exist in the future, things have to align in a certain way. What you could say then is that the future retro-causes the present, and the past causes the present. So the present moment is sort of at wars with history and the future of what had happened and what will happen, and that we're in this sort of dialectic between the two, and we're moving, and that's the nature of history. So Nick Land thinks that capitalism and technology is going to come to exist as AI in the future, and so he thinks that there's like this techno-capital AI god at the end of time, blah, blah, blah. And he thinks it's more inevitable, and so they have this accelerationist idea where they think that everything is going to be heading towards this end state of this God at the end of time. I don't think that's the case. I do think that the process of teleological retrocausality that he prescribes to is true, but I think that we're in this sort of war where there's multiple end states, multiple gods. You could take the Gnostic demiurge, for example, and think that at the end of time, there's this demiurge who wins this war, who then is able to create the world in his own image. And so Nick Land's idea of the techno-capital AI god. Then there's maybe the Christian god, or it would be the Abrahamic gods, but you have the different versions of either the Jewish, Christian, or Islamic versions. They all might look a little different, but they're, I guess, all the same one. Then you have, say, more pagan or pagan gods. So you have maybe Wotan or Odin. Then you have maybe even Loki, or you have all these different gods that are vying for control, vying to be the demiurge. And so what we need to think about is that everything you do and every goal you have in mind is for some purpose. David Foster Wallace wrote about this extensively, where everyone has some god that they worship, some thing. So say you worship money. Well, what god are you worshiping? Well, you're probably worshiping Kronos, or what is it, Saturn, because they're the time gods, and money really is a function of time. And so if you are very greedy, you are worshiping this god, and you're allowing him to become the demiurge. And so it's kind of an interesting thought experiment and all these things, but in reality, it still all boils down to this idea of psychohistory and this idea of teleological retrocausality, where if we're able to perfectly predict the future, or not perfectly, but reasonably well, based on all this data that's being scraped throughout all the internet, they can predict what you are going to do at a reasonably well point. Well, what outcome do they want to get to? So in the case of the Foundation series, they want to get the second empire, which would only take 1,000 years. But with all these people that are developing this psychohistoric sort of science, what are they trying to do? And I guess that's what we have to think about, and we have to ponder and wonder, what is the purpose of these people? Because then we have to align ourselves to what we think our purpose should be, because there is this war going on at the end of time of all these different gods and all these different teloses trying to emerge. And so I think that's enough for now. My next video is going to be a more structured essay on this war for future history is what I'm going to be calling it. So yeah, I'll develop the theories a little bit more, but I just wanted to do a slight discussion about it, a free-form discussion, to see if you guys like this better or how it does in the algorithm. My last video didn't get pushed at all, so I don't know. I'm trying to figure out which stuff gets pushed in the algorithm. So that's it for now. I hope you guys all have a good rest of your day. Bye.